start.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So, welcome to session 5 on day 2 of Let's Talk About Literature, an online lit fest being organized by Flipping Pages and Book Your Book. Before I start the session, let me take a moment to introduce our organizers. Flipping Pages is a traditional publishing as well as a PR company for authors, while Book Your Books is a platform that helps writers sell their books in an affordable manner and helps reach them a far wider audience. The Book Your Book app is also now available on Google Play Store for download. Also, we have a very interesting literature quiz running, the prelims of which are being done online, and the link for the same is in the chat box. And we would love everybody to participate. And we have some very exciting prizes. Starting with the session, this session is titled Rise of Humour. And we have two very interesting authors in the panel. Dr. Jas Kohli thinks of himself as a cosmetic surgeon gone astray. He is a fiction writer, humor poet, bird watcher, singer, and astronomer. As a writer, he is partial to humor. His first fiction book, titled Anything to Look Hot, which was based on the life of a plastic surgeon in Bollywood, and his second book was titled Light's Scalpel Romance, which is a comedy based on misadventures of surgeons in a surgical unit. Gautam Mayekar is a certified ethical hacker who works for the American IT company Tipco Softwares as a product security engineer. He is born and brought up in Goa, and when he isn't hacking or writing, he likes to go fishing and give quirky commentary over social media. I Am So Hacked is his debut novel, and his second book is titled Stoned, The Untold Story of COVID 20, which is scheduled to be out in February 2021. And this is Siddhant, and I blog about books using the handle State Reviews, and I'll be moderating this session. So, welcome, Gautam, and welcome, Dr. Kohli. I
Thank
am
you.
really
Thank you.
excited to talk to you about books, and let's have a very interesting session since we are talking about humor. So, so my first question to both of you is when you write a story with a humor element, do you first plot out the entire story and then decide to add humorous content to it and humorous elements to it? Or does that actually come organically as you write the story?
So this debate has been going for a long time. Plotters versus the pantsers, and so initially I was a pantser, and the first two books it was mostly a spontaneous writing, and of course I was helped that they were related to my field in which I'm working, and so I had a lot of material already in my mind. But now what the last two books, one which is due to has been given for publishing, it is the process of getting published, and the present one. So here I have made a sort of skeletal plot, because even in a humor book, the readers do look for twists and turns. And the critics, they are sometimes they will say that your book was good, but it had no, the story element was lacking. So after getting kicked on the butt by many reviewers, getting lessons from the last two books, now I have come to the conclusion that a strong plot is necessary even in a humor book. And of course, later on, you can that is just you can go off course, and you can add different elements, and then some of the humor that comes through the language, that is
Okay.
through the wordplay, that of course is added later on.
Okay. Gautam, what's your process about it?
Yeah. Yeah, Doctor just said it right. You have to have a plot also. But honestly, my first book, it was very, different genre, not exactly a humor genre. It was techno psycho thriller genre. So, but the thing is, I did have some dark humor, and for me, that was pretty organic because It's a first person narrative, single person narrative, and the narrator is speaking to the readers, to the audience. So it was more like a social commentary in some chapters. So that time, the crass, the dark humor, the kind of humor that probably might put me in jail, that kind of humor. So it just came organically. But down the lane, if you are as a writer, if you're developing a bigger story, a third person narrative, then I guess having a character who is probably a comic character, or the plot line itself is
Right.
funny, that would really add a lot of weightage to the whole humor segment, which is of course very
Right.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you look at the last few months in the pandemic and the lockdown, do you think humor has actually become a preferred genre for a lot of people? Because we have seen, short stories coming, short novels coming. So, do you think humor has actually gone up in the preference of people of reading?
Yeah. Sorry, doctor, you can go ahead. Sure.
So humor has actually been there since the times immemorial. Like even in the Vedas and Upanishads, there are even satirical references to God, something which would be unthinkable today.
Right.
And even Panchatantra has a lot of humor. Like you must be remembering the monkey and the crocodile story.
Right.
So and now in the pandemic, to ward off stress, a lot of people are have reverted to humor. And also, I think the social media has also played a role in this, because uh, the lot of funny comments are often posted on Twitter and other sites.
Right. Gautam?
Yeah, actually, like if we speak specifically in terms of this lockdown, the meme culture has really, taken a boom. So I guess, yeah, people are looking for good humor, good laughter in their life. But yes, humor has always been there, like how Dr. just said, from the times. I mean, it's just natural. It's just organic. Even as not just as a writer, but even as a person, we always sometime or the other keep creating probably jokes or situations or self-deprecation joke to make people laugh. So that thing is always there. Yeah.
So
Right.
since the humans, since humans don't have a tail, animals use their tail to wag their tail to show happiness, and
Yeah.
humans they don't have a tail, so God has given them the smile to
Right.
express joy.
Very, very, this is an interesting take, actually. This brings me to another question. Both of your books, initial books, were based in a setting that you are comfortable in. So, Dr. Kohli, you have written two books which are based in a medical scenario, and Gautam's first book was very hacky, if I can say. So, do you think that's an important element when you are writing humor in a story? You have to be comfortable in the setting that you are creating.
That helps a lot, because uh, first of all, I must confess that not all jokes can be created. As they say, the truth is stranger than fiction. So some of the things which actually happened when I was working, those I could not have imagined.
Right.
So therefore that helps, and also you have your colleagues, who can relate funny incidents to you, and you get a tons of ready material to, so that does help. But ultimately you have to break from it and come to creating a story out of scratch.
Right.
Because how many books can you write like that?
That's true.
Yeah,
Gautam?
true, Siddhant. So, yeah, for me also, I guess the comfort factor really helped, because especially the part where there is a corporate life and all that. So that humor was perhaps inspired by the real life incidents or scenarios that really helped. and not just in terms of those plot scenarios, but also, while the character is narrating his story, I guess being comfortable in that field really helps you to create humor or take some sarcastic takes in that particular domain without having to worry much, because your kind of knowledge in that domain really helps. So it does help, but yes, you need to be very open with other fields also. And it's a great thing, because humor is the thing which can exist not just in your domain. It's a universal concept.
Right.
And yeah, so of course, maybe down the lane, humor will always be there, I guess, in the books. And yeah, there is a long way to explore in other domains
Yeah.
as well.
So, if we talk about your writing process, both of you are working professionals. So, what is your writing process? How do you actually articulate your thoughts, sit down and write? So, what's the process like?
Like in my case, my brain starts working on these lines, like writing, after dinner. Before that, I'm busy in my work mostly, or in some family matters or some other issues. And I rarely think about my plot or anything till I'm busy in my work. And since I sleep very late, so that is the best time. I think it is there with many writers, and of course there must be many who get up early. So it is whatever suits anyone.
Right, Gautam?
That's a very scheduled. I mean, honestly speaking, Siddhant, I really don't have a schedule as such. I mean, I don't know if you see my Instagram and all. I'm the kind of guy who spends 364 days just doing nothing, procrastinating, and then maybe on that 365th day, I will sit and write perhaps. So that's why most of my writings have been, the blog post which I wrote, which then got compiled into novel, not just in I'm So Hacked, but also in that next book which is coming next month. So I guess, I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not endorsing it. It's always good to have a, specific schedule or specific timeline, because being disciplined really helps, not just with your deadlines, which I realize, but also in your life in general. But in my case, if I be really honest, I don't really have a particular, time or schedule or anything. But I try to look it as a positive. Whatever things that I do, those 364 days, maybe they end up being shared as experiences on that 365th though. So yeah, for me, writing is always messy.
Right. So, in a story with a humorous element, what do you think is actually more important, the plot, or the characters, or the situations, which actually adds that particular element to your entire structure of the story?
My feeling is that the character is the most important element in a humor,
Okay.
and the character in humor is always an anti-hero. If there's an this is a person who is having lot of inadequacies, few good points and lot of inadequacies, and if you put that person in any quirky situation, lot of humor will be created as such. So if you whenever you look at the humor poets, the hasya kavis, they will always they will never have a hero like face. They will always try to make somebody will keep a funny mustache, somebody will try to keep a the hairstyle with the oily hair, and like this. So so once the and then of course every human writer has different strengths. My uh, strength is satire and wordplay, and because in the humor writers also they specialize in various some are into slapstick comedy, some are into situational comedy, some are into parody, and
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually very interesting. Gautam?
Yeah. So yeah, even I would say character is important. But then again, like I said earlier, if I'm writing from first person perspective, there are a lot of areas which I can cover, especially in the genre which uh, perhaps I have written or I write, that is again satire and uh, dark comedy, that kind of thing. But uh, having a plot also in a way helps. If you are writing an entire plot and then probably presenting that as the whole fun part. But nowadays, like even in lockdown and all, I mean, no offense to the earlier movies, but we kind of, the generation, we really kind of like the Pankaj Tripathi type humor, like it's very natural, organic, and it's very satire based, rather than spoon feeding the comedy to you with some background music like ting tong and all. No, we kind of like it very organic, and I guess that humor is taking up, and for that having character will help. But when you are presenting it again, you know uh, let's speak in terms of bigger picture, then maybe actors do that kind of stuff as well. I don't want to delve into from books to screen, but
So
yeah.
I would, sorry, I would like to add a point that the people in the audiovisual industry, they have an advantage that you can show a lot of humor through expressions and your
Right, right.
personality. And of course, the background laughter also helps to, because as I see
Right.
Big Bang Theory and some other sitcoms, so
Yeah.
we have to, the humor writers have to make an extra effort, because we don't have any that stuff which can create instant, connect with the audience.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's true actually.
yeah. So
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
both of your professions are not something that one would associate with a writer. Uh, so being an ethical hacker or being a doctor, you have a pretty busy day schedule. So,
Okay.
how did this transition from from a professional to a writer? How did this happen? And especially in the genres that you write, which are very different, yet they emerge at some point. So, how did that happen? So, we can start with Dr. Kohli.
So to me, it happened at a quite late age. That I don't know exactly, because maybe it was my way to solve my midlife crisis. That I was, sort of getting stuck up in a limbo, and I thought, let us do something in my life which can give a more meaning to it. That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gautam.
Well, I haven't really, analyzed from transition point of view, but I always used to write even in college and all. And then when in Quick Hill, when I was working in this antivirus company, and we had to chase one, uh, some task we had to do, and I kind of ended up writing very uh, blog post with a very satirical tone and negative narration, kind of unreliable narration, and those blogs really took it up. And I thought, okay, why not, let's make a book out of it. And then one thing led to another, and the same thing happened with Stoned as well. So we had riots in Pune, and one fine day we were left early from office. I came home and I wrote a blog post with from stoner's perspective. Okay. So I didn't want to take anyone's side, orange flag, blue flag, nothing. I just wrote from stoner's side of the riots, and that kind of really took off. And then one thing led to another, that reached half baked beans, and it had Nucleya's music in it. So we approached Nucleya, and he said, yeah, he liked it. He wrote a foreword for it. So I guess it's just yeah, you have to write, whether it's a blog post or whether it's a big story, as an escape, and maybe yeah, it kind of works out.
It's a good addiction.
Yeah.
It comes under the category of good addictions.
Okay. Yeah.
Few
Very
addictions which can be termed as
escape.
Yeah, so I've actually seen this, when I talk to people about their writing. It's something very personal. As Gautam mentioned, he used to do blog posts, and you wrote when you wanted to get out of a midlife crisis. So, turning your blog post into a book, or turning your uh, turning incidents that happened at your workplace into a book, uh, was that an organic idea, or was it a push from somebody? How did that happen to basically become a mainstream writer?
See, it is most of the debut writers. Uh, it is known that their first book is mostly semi-autobiographical, because see, it is also a journey. Writing is also a journey. You become mature as you write over the years. It can't be learned in an
Right.
instant. So once you're writing a semi-autobiographical, you have got a lot of ready material with you, and you have got a lot of interesting stuff. You know that at least this will click with some of the readers. So that is how I see it.
Right.
Yeah, the push, that push was always there, because when you see people, talking about it or sharing it, and they're like, hey, why don't you write more of it? So I guess that more of it then becomes a novel, if I can
Yeah.
answer it in one sentence. Yeah.
So
So,
I would like to ask Gautam a question. That was becoming famous also one of the, you know uh,
Uh,
your motivations
to be
to.
honest, not really, because yeah, it does help when you get messages from people and praising your work and all. But fame and everything, it's more for yourself. When you see your writing in the printed words, or when you see people telling you that, hey, your book made me chuckle, and that kind of stuff. So I guess it's more on that level, if I can say.
Another thing that I noticed in Gautam, your book, and Dr. Kohli,
Yeah.
your book as well, the titles are something that stand out. So, be it I am so hacked in that very particular techie font, or when we talk about COVID 20, or Dr. Kohli, your book, Lights, Scalpel, Romance. So, how important is a title for a story or a book, especially in the humor genre?
It is so important that when whichever titles I went to the sent to my literary agent or the publisher, they were always changed. So from here you can judge that how important the title. And so I thought I had a fantastic title, and it was both these titles were uh, my original titles were rubbished by the uh, literary agents and the publishers, that no, they are not catchy enough, or they will. And so I sent them a list of about 10 to 15 titles. So I told them, okay, you select one out of 10.
These
That is
many.
how the titles of both books happened.
Yeah, I guess
Gautam?
for me it was my choice only, because the whole concept of that novel was, hacking the reader. So I'm so hacked is like, how that's exclamation mark, like, hey, I'm so screwed that way. Screwed is a very polite word. So if you go to my title, I'm so hacked that way.
Right.
So
No,
that just,
yeah. In
yeah.
fact,
So
that
it
is
went with the theme.
it
Sorry.
went with
Yeah.
the theme. It did went
Yeah.
with the theme, and especially what happened inside the book, your chapter titles and the way that you wrote the chapter titles. It was very in line with the cover itself.
Well,
Like,
that's a leet language, L333T. So that's the language all the techie geeks and hackers use in the hacking forum. If you see, I know it, like at some point of time during our texting and all, we have had used that. Like earlier it was that trend, like, hey, how, like, can you hack my Facebook, MAH, FBK, and all that short form. But in hacking forums and all, that language is still in use, maybe to conceal their identity, maybe to look cool. Like my character Avidit, if I can write simple AVI, that it's like hackers like to be a little techie. So if Avi was a hacker, he would be at the rate V exclamation mark. So to keep that curiosity and mystery. So that's why I went with the same titles as well.
Great. Both of you have books coming out which are on this particular element which you're talking about, which is Rise of Humor. So, if you could, if you have the permission, would you like to tell us a bit about your books, Dr. Kohli and Gautam, the next, what we can expect from you?
So I have written a comedy about my home city, that is Ludhiana, about its marriages. It's a nice, humorous plots. I'll not give away everything, but it is basically about how people splurge uh, their money on marriages and the show off culture of the city. So Indians, they are the most self-critical about their own selves. And I have written about the positive points of the city also, its entrepreneurial energy, and it is like almost every paragraph is special. It is full of fun and frolic.
Nice. This would actually be interesting, especially reading about a humorous take on the big fat Indian wedding in Ludhiana.
Yeah, that's really interesting, the whole concept, because we have okay,
Especially in
so
COVID, we have missed a lot of them. So I think reading them would be very interesting. Yes, Gautam.
yes. Yeah, so mine is Stoned, the Untold Story of COVID-20. So here COVID is written like CO hyphen WEED hyphen 20. So that's so the story so the story starts in a time machine. So Amar, a protagonist, he's speaking to the audience, same unreliable narrator perspective, and he has traveled into the past, and he is trying to find a cure to this drug, that is COVID-20, which he released and which led to the entire population of Mumbai city gone to sleep. Okay, so
Okay.
he is there, he has come in the past, but here's the thing: he has traveled with his friend, and the friend who designed this time machine, and that friend is COVID-20 positive, so he's sleeping, and Amar has no way of opening the door or how to get out of the time machine, so he's just narrating the story into voice data recorder, VDR of that time machine.
Hmm.
And then after that, it's all about his story, what exactly happened and how did he reach to that point, and why did they travel back in time. So it's just a short
Yeah,
novel, compilation of this blog post. Have
this
fun reading
actually
it.
seems, yeah, this actually seems like a very, science fiction meets humor meets dark
Well,
comedy sort of a
that's a
thing.
liar, but yeah, there is a bit of everything in it.
Yeah, this actually very sounds very interesting. So we have a
Thank
question from the audience as well.
you. Yeah.
Mayur is asking, which authors have influenced you? So it's for both of them, both of you. So who has inspired you to write?
See, uh, for me, my favorite all-time humor author is, of course, P.J. Woodhouse. But surprisingly, I have been inspired more by the sitcoms on television, like Friends and The Big Bang Theory. And because it is a really, the lines are really amazing. You're really amazed by the people who are writing the
You,
scripts. So it is a mixture of everything. And then I also read some blogs and all that stuff. So it's a mixture of everything. And in fact, nowadays, the readership is also there, lapping up various media, not just books. So I'm now writing humor snippets on Facebook and Insta. So a lot of people who don't read books, they are reading that stuff. So you have to, I think,
Right.
a writer needs to connect with every type of reader. And, you can have a short version of your writing, a medium version, and a long version to cater to every
Right.
person's taste.
Right.
yeah.
Gautam?
Well, for me, it was, I was a huge fan of Chuck Palahniuk and, American Psycho, those kind of books, psycho thrillers. So I guess in a way that really helped me write the I'm So Hacked, and even the COVID-20, because it has kind of like similar narration. But the one like second book from Hacker series, which I already said will be out in 2021, that's more of a slow, mature story of three people, and it's told in third person perspective. So three hackers, I mean, told in third person perspective. So for that, like specifically, there is no author who influenced me as such, but in general, I like reading classics of Harold Robbins, because I like the way he creates all those biographical stories of decade long stories. And I like reading all kind of author. Basically, you tend to pick few things here and there from all authors, specifically from all genre, like John Green and even Indian authors. Like I've read them all. So I guess like the point which Dr. Jas mentioned, that is also really good, because nowadays with so much of all the snippets on Instagram, your code, Meraki, you can pick few things here and there, and then make a story out of it. Specifically, if you're looking for one line humor and all.
Right. We have another question from Samir. He's asking, do you think a writer has to be humorous to write humor?
I think so. See, there are one needs to have a humorous instinct, and that you can judge right from the childhood. So if somebody is able to give witty answers, and having an impromptu humor helps you.
Right.
So, but on the other hand, there are some techniques of humor which can be taught, and they can embellish help one's humorous streak. And especially there are some techniques of wordplay and creating situations, incongruity, uh, and many others. So it is. I think it's a. But yes, to be a humor writer, it would be good to have a humorous streak.
Right.
Yeah,
Gautam?
I agree with that point. Mostly if you are a person, like if you're a fun-loving person who likes cracking jokes and sharing your wit, it definitely helps. But then, as a writer, if you have a very good observational skills, even the people in your group who are cracking jokes here and there, you can write about them as well. So I guess yes, it definitely helps. It's great if you are witty, and you have that inborn sarcasm talent. But then it's something that can be developed. And as a writer, if you are a very good observational skills, then you can definitely bring that along into your characters. Which is
Right.
that.
So, Gautam, since we have just last 5 minutes left in the meeting, I have one very personal question to ask. How was the experience working with Nucleya for your book?
Oh,
The part, yeah.
that's That's huge for me. I mean, I've been a huge fan of Nuclear. Like 2 years back when I wrote that blog post, I was kind of tripping on his music, and I just came home and I wrote that blog post, and the blog post just found the music just found way into those blog posts. So when then I met Chetan Soni, Half Baked Bean, and we discussed like maybe you should have a novel on this. But then I kind of got occupied with this hacker series, and now that I got time, we compiled it into a short novella. And after that, we thought, like, why not we can check, approach Nucleya and see if he wants to read the book, and, maybe write online review or forward. And he was very helpful. I mean, the moment I sent the email, next day only his reply came. And then they were very interested, not just he, but his entire team, PR agents and all those people. So they were very helpful, and they were saying like, yeah, this is very interesting. Uh, and then they wrote a foreword for it. So overall, as an experience, it's been great for me, because I followed not just his music but also his documentary. How as a DJ, he's been always been DJing in 20s, but then he got his big break in 30, 34, and then he became India's topmost DJ. So all that thing. And when I wrote that blog post, I was also kind of, in that phase, like, okay, I need to do something with my creativity. I'm just doing this job and everything. People always wanted me to write, but I haven't brought any book out yet and all those things. So his, not just in terms of music, but also in terms of life inspiration, was it was very inspirational for me. And then 2 years later, getting his forward on my book, that's like, wow. I mean, और क्या चाहिए? I was super happy with that.
Yeah. So, thank you, Gautam. And thank you, Dr. Kohli, for sharing your stories about your books and your writing experience. And your writing, how does your writing actually go about? It was a pleasure talking to you, and I am really sure your upcoming books would be super amazing. Just listening to the excerpts just was very amazing, and especially when you have Nucleya writing your forward and Dr. Kohli, you have mentioned that there is humor and there's a big fat Indian wedding
Yeah.
with something very different in each paragraph. I am really looking forward to it, and I really hope that it comes out really soon. So thank you for joining us for this session for the online lit fest. Thank you for sparing your time, and thank you Book Your Books and Flipping Pages for organizing this and letting me host the session as well. It was a real honor moderating both these people, and I don't think there would be as a panel as interesting as this on humor when we have a hacker and a doctor on panel. So thank you for joining
Thank you,
and listen.
Siddhant, and thank you, Flipping Pages.
Thank you. Yeah, living pages to see everyone. Thank you so much for having
Thank you,
me,
thank you,
and thanks for the audience joining. Amazing
thank you,
questions.
thank you.